To go around the back to the alley to the little booth there, pay the same amount as people paid who walked to the front, or in the restaurants where they let you stand up and buy some food but not sit down.
We used to go in town, but anytime you'd go shopping, if you tried on a hat, you had to put a net on your head if you were black.
If I were walking down the sidewalk and I came upon some whites, I would have two choices. One is to get off the sidewalk, or the second would be to direct my eyes to the floor so that I couldn't make eye-to-eye contact. You could be arrested, you could be harassed, you could put your family at risk, and in some instances you could even be killed.
In the mid-1940s, Winston-Salem State College hired a young coach, Clarence Big House Gaines.
He came here in '45, straight out of college, Morgan State. I met him on a blind date, and when he first appeared in the doorway, I thought he was the biggest thing I'd ever seen. He played football at Morgan. He loved football, but he learned to love basketball more, I think. He was a head football coach for a time at Winston-Salem State. Then he was made the head basketball coach, and he was athletic director at the same time. That was a bit much because he only got one salary for two jobs.
To make matters more difficult, he didn't know much about the game of basketball, but he had a friend nearby who did. John McClendon was only a few hours away at North Carolina College for Negroes.
McClendon went to Big House and told him, come and work out with me and see if you can't learn something more about basketball.
They talked basketball all night long.
A friendship grew out of those times, and Big House would tell you this, that he learned a great deal from John and that he sort of hung on his very words there at the beginning.
John McClendon invited Big House Gaines to go on recruiting trips with him, something unheard of today.
The school didn't have a recruiting budget, so he would call Big House Gaines and he would say, okay, we're going up to New Jersey, or we're going up the way, they would say back down there. We're going up the way, and the way being up north, and they would say, you know, we'll stop in Virginia, we'll stop in Baltimore, we'll stop in Philadelphia.
Coach McClendon taught him, okay, you go up north to get your skill players, as he called them, and you go to the Midwest to get your fundamental players. You want a shooter, you go to Illinois or Indiana. You want ball handlers, you go to New York. You want flashy players, you go to New York playgrounds.
It was understood that when it was on Mr. McClendon's territory, he would not say anything, wouldn't even get out of the car. And when it was on Clarence Edward Gaines' territory, McClendon did the same thing.
So they never competed recruiting, they worked together. Little House and Big House.
I had never heard of Winston-Salem. I had never been south. As I got off the train, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody was there. There was steam coming up from the tracks and whatnot. And we looked down and we saw a head way down on the other end of the platform. And the head started to come toward us. And the body got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We looked up at it. It was Coach Gaines. He was, what, 6'5", or so, 300 pounds. And we looked up at it and said, oh, shucks. He says, as he always says, son, how you doing? And he always called everybody son.
I said, don't call me son. My name is Ernest Brown. And Coach was tough. He told me, son, take your ass up to that dormitory and just sit there and be quiet.
After my first year, I didn't start. I wasn't playing that much. I only played when the team was down. I would come in, I'd shoot. We'd get up, I'd come out the game. After the season, I tell you, Coach, I'm not going for this anymore. I'm going back to Philly. And He stands up in front of me. All this 6'5", 300 pounds. And I'm saying to myself, I don't want to fight this man. You know, I can't. So I'm chilling. So he said, wait here.
Coach would sit you down and say, son, where you going? Did you talk to your mother?
He comes back, you know, a little while later. He says, your mother and your sister on the phone. You go talk to them. He was a guy who understood how to get to guys. He knew everything about you. And he knew that for me, it was my family, my mother, my sister. I did basically whatever they said. And, you know, they just kind of ran my life. I was a mama's boy. So I was there for the next 3 years, and thank goodness I was. Because Big House is a great coach.
Although black college basketball had grown and improved dramatically, the teams were not allowed to participate in the biggest postseason tournaments. The popular NIT, NCAA, and NAIA were for white teams only. No blacks allowed.
John McClendon in 1948 actually started a basketball committee to bring about integration in college basketball. And they petitioned the NCAA to open up their tournaments to the historic black colleges. The NCAA said that the fans may not appreciate the kind of game that your colleges play, and your coaches perhaps are not competent enough. The NCAA said no.
The NCAA never wanted us. Black schools, they never wanted us. Then finally, thanks to John McClendon, who fought hard to get us in, the NAIA accepted us.
But there was a catch. The best teams from the black colleges had to compete against each other in a separate tournament. And only the winner, one black team, was allowed to participate in the NAIA tournament.
When we played those schools, they put up new nets. And in some cases, not all nets would be new, but they would soak them the night before. And sometimes soak them in salt water so that the ball would come out slow. Give them a chance to get back on defense.
When the teams got to Kansas City, they were faced with the cruel realities of the time. Hotels would not give rooms to black players. John McClendon fixed that problem by contacting officials of the Converse Rubber Company, who put pressure on local politicians.
He won that battle. John won that battle to integrate the hotels in Kansas City. He wasn't militant, but he did militant things in his way, in his quiet way.
In 1950, two college rivals, Earl Lloyd and Harold Hunter, would make history. Lloyd, a 6'6" dynamic forward from West Virginia State, and Harold Hunter, a 5'9" guard who went to North Carolina College for Negroes and played for John McClendon.
His nickname was Wild Man, Harold Wild Man Hunter. This guy, without question, was the best conditioned athlete I've ever seen in my whole life. I mean, you play against him, man, you know, you're at the 39-minute mark, and you're on the foul line holding your pants and breathing and your shirt, and he's there going, I said, man, you're not human, man. I said, when you die, they ought to give your body to science, man, so they can check you out.
My last 2 years at North Carolina College, the main opposition was West Virginia with Earl Lloyd. They were being looked upon by the sports writers in that area as being the greatest black college team that had ever been assembled.
Sophomore year, we went 33-0.
In 1950, the championship game is between John McClendon's North Carolina team and West Virginia State. Harold Hunter is the star of the North Carolina team.
In the CIAA tournament title game, Harold Hunter's team defeated Lloyd's West Virginia State in the final seconds, 74-70.
Harold Hunter becomes the MVP of the tournament, and Earl Lloyd is the runner-up and VP. At that same time, John McClendon and other black coaches, as well as some people in the black press, from the Pittsburgh Courier, the Baltimore African American, and other newspapers, trying to push the NBA to accept black players. Finally, in 1950, the Washington Capitals decided it was an opportune time to integrate.
I found out from a classmate walking across the campus. A little girl said to me, I heard your name on the radio. I said, no, what have I done wrong this time, you know? She said, some team called the Washington Capitals drafted you to play for them.
The Washington Capitals contacted McLendon, and that's how I was notified. I was offered a contract, full $4,000. Earl Lloyd probably had a little bit to negotiate. He's 6'6" and I'm 5'9". What am I going to negotiate for? 5'9", I'm the smallest one in the NBA. What am I going to hold out for? They offered the contract and I signed it. In 1950, I became the first black to sign an NBA contract.
That was something that John always wanted. He always wanted Harold to be the first to sign with the pros. Harold was like a son to John. John felt like he was a father to Harold.
I signed for $5,000. Yeah, $5,000 was a whole bunch of money for somebody that never worked in their lives. Teachers working 9 months are making $2,500 a year. So here I am, I'm making twice more than teachers and can still get a summer job to augment that. I became the first African American to play in the NBA. Now here I am, guys from Georgetown, UCLA, Ohio State, and you read about these guys. Here we are, I'm from a small black college. I mean, you're so awestruck just from being there. It's hard to practice. And then you realize, man, the common denominator is about to happen. And the great common denominator is, when you scrimmage and they throw the ball up, we are all equal.
I made it with the squad through the exhibition season, and the club told me they had to let me go because they had to try to save the space to get some taller fellas.
I should have believed that if Harold Hunter had been drafted by another team, he'd have played in that league. But the Washington Capitals were not going to have two black players on the same team, not in 1950.
The NBA had an unwritten quota system that prohibited teams from having more than one or two blacks.
I really didn't think I'd been given a fair shake. But, you know, you can't buy anything at the store on hurt feelings. So I just went about trying to do the best I could. And I went to play in a league they call the Eastern League.
The
recently